The Holy Gospel comes into our midst this morning according to St. Mark, the 10th chapter. Glory to you, O Lord. As Creator sets free, Jesus set out walking from there. A man ran up to him and honored him. "Good wisdom keeper," the man asked, "what path will lead me to the life of the world to come that never fades away?" "Why do you call me good?" he asked the man. "There is only one who is good, the Great Spirit. You must know the instructions from the lawgiver drawn from the water, Moses. You are not to take the life of another, or to be unfaithful in marriage, or take what is not yours. Never lie about or cheat a fellow human being, and always give honor and respect to your father and mother." "Wisdom keeper," the man answered, "from my youth I have followed all of these instructions." Creator sets free, Jesus looked at the man with love and said, "Only one thing remains. Take all your possessions, invite the poor of your village to come, and have a giveaway. Then in the spirit world above you will have many possessions waiting for you. Then leave everything behind and come. Walk the road with me." The man's heart fell to the ground. He hung his head and walked away, for he had many possessions. Creator sets free, Jesus then looked around at the people and said to his followers, "Finding and walking the good road is a hard thing for the ones who have many possessions." His followers could not believe what they were hearing. Creator sets free, Jesus spoke again to them. "Little children," he said, "the ones who trust in their many possessions will have a hard time finding their way onto the good road. It would be easier for a moose to go through the eye of a needle." They shook their heads in wonder, looked at each other, and said, "How then can anyone walk the good road that sets all people free?" He looked at them and said, "It is not possible for weak human beings, but with Creator's help, all things are possible." Stands on the rock, Peter spoke up. "We have left all our possessions and our relatives to walk the road with you. What will become of us?" "I speak from the heart," he answered. "No one who has given up homes and families to follow me and walk my good road will go without. In this present world, they will become part of an even greater family with many homes and lands. Even though they have been abused and mistreated, they will receive much more than they have lost. Then in the world to come, they will have the life of beauty and harmony that never fades away. But many who are first will be last, and many who are last will be first." This is the gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ.
I found out early on, just because I got big ears, that don't mean I can hear well. Again, I'm extremely honored to be here with you. You know, we talk about Indigenous Peoples Day, and there's many days in America to celebrate different things. There's moments in time where we have opportunity to do right what has been wronged, even in our mindset. So the challenge is to change the collective consciousness of a people that has been misguided and directed from those that seek the power and the materialism. I love to hear the similarities between the gospel and traditional indigenous ways, the true ways to how do you care for one another, the ones that are homeless to house them until they can get on their feet, to feed the ones that are hungry, to clothe the ones that are naked. These spiritual principles are held true in indigenous societies, a communal way of living. We're told to be, we're led in such a way in America to be individualism, and thus selfishness follows. So before we get too far along in Ojibwe, I've introduced myself. I am from the Gwiwizens, this is my Ojibwe name. I'm from the community of Fond du Lac. Fond du Lac is a French word. Nagachuanong is the place where the current stops. I am a retired iron worker. I believe in our ways. I went to boarding school. I graduated from a boarding school in the 11th grade in a town called Flandreau, South Dakota. I was raised in a traditional fashion as a child, a foundation. We all have foundations. That was mine. Ceremony around the drum, Dewe Egan, the sound, the instrument that has the sound of the heart, Dewe. So the way we use tobacco, the way we use our language and things. So this was the foundation that I had on Fond du Lac. Nagachuanong. You can feel the difference in the language and what they use, truly descriptive. So it is then that I moved to Duluth. In the relocation era, we moved from the reservation. They were pushing indigenous peoples off the reservations to rid the Indian problem of the government. Our family came to Duluth. Many families went to Chicago, Oakland, Minneapolis, and many other places, Cleveland. Ours came to Duluth. My mother and father had the wisdom to stay close to our homelands. And so and then we were raised as, in the hillside, as Catholics. So that's where I understand some about the gospel. And I think it's what little bit we understand we need to live. And when we live that way, we honor those that have taught us these things. Through the generations, we're all connected to the great-grandparents, to the grandparents, to the parents. We are in the middle of those generations. We want to be a good example for our children, so then we can see the results in our grandchildren and have hope for the great-grandchildren as they live a spiritual way of life that brings happiness to each of us, our families. Sometimes we hear criticism, but most often those victories, the spiritual victories that we have, those spiritual highs, are celebrated by everybody in the family. This is really an awesome thing that when we live in a spiritual fashion. We live in a natural fashion, then it seems to be that life is healthier. We know about natural law. Natural law tells us the sun comes up in the east and sets in the west. The sun, the moon, the night sun, as it is called in our language, then follows. We know about the star world. The teachings about the star world that come to us tell of a child that was looking to do some good for his people because his people had deviated from the instructions how to live a good life. This little boy then asked what he could do, and the elders told him to fast, blacken your face in such a fashion with the charcoal from the spirit fire, and then fast. And on the fourth day he was taken up. away from his fasting area by the spirits into the crescent shape of the moon, Ashke Gunjingizis, out the far side of the moon and into the star world, where 7 grandfathers sat with gifts for this little boy. We know that things are unseen, mysteries, like the far side of the moon. So therefore we cannot see that. Being spiritual is going to that place of the unseen. That's why we are seekers of knowledge every day. We look to find and make progress in things that we know that we can share with the next generation and intergenerational knowledge. So there's many different knowledges that we have. Intergenerational knowledge, all those things that have been taught to you and I from the great-grandparents and their great-grandparents, all the way to our children. Intergenerational knowledge. Then there is dream state knowledge, when one fasts and goes without food and water for a length of time to be with the forces of nature, the mysteries, the powers. Dream state knowledge. There is ceremonial knowledge also, and where we have the language, we have the ceremonies that have been going and happening for since time immemorial. We know these things, and we also have contemporary knowledge, today's form of knowledge. We've got to be careful about that, of what is being taught, because there's so much misinformation and deception that follows with this form of contemporary knowledge and the means to transfer that knowledge through these phones and other computers and things. So there's much influence by the negative forces in our world. So we've got to be aware of that. We're not afraid of those forces, but we welcome them in a good way, and we give them offerings so that they can go their way. We're more welcoming to those forces that are good and kind, and we welcome them and embrace them. So we recognize some duality in our daily lives as we go about and look for those forms of knowledge to find truth. Each of us has our own truths, personal truth. We've got the truths that our community our nation has come to know. So, and then there's factual truth. Our experiences tell us our truth, and our body will follow, is that good or bad? It'll tell us these things if we listen, if we quiet our mind in stillness long enough to hear what is being said, to be in relationship with the mysteries that abound us. We've got to realize the sounds that are coming are detrimental. The first sound of the universe in Ojibwe is the shaker. The first prayer is we have need. So we think about those things that are connected to this first sounds. Language, indigenous language, to that area specific is a sound. That's why there is ways to, I'm a second language speaker of Ojibwe. The old ones say that they can tell right away because we have an English sound to Ojibwe. So there's been that influence there, but the sound is welcomed by the ancestors to revitalize a language. So that's important to have that indigenous sound. The natural wisdom keepers have been assaulted for a long time in this Turtle Island by mainstream dominant forces, the government forces and things. We know these things have happened, so we have to have resistance. Not all resistance is bad. When we see the struggles that we face, day in, day out, the children will watch the things that we do. We're always being watched. Gikendaasowin is. You are being watched in the things you do. When we come to a house of worship, we're being watched by the mysteries. When we go home, our children watch the things that we do and hear the things that we say. So we've got to do our part. Everybody has a part to play in this world. So we've got to say, what is my part? And then do our part. We have to be a part of life, celebrate life, be a part of the ceremony of life, honor life, treat with one another with the most respect that we can for that moment. Life is full of moments when you greet someone each day. When the sun comes up, you greet the sun. You greet one another, kindness. If they have a bad day and they say something of this, what's so good about it? That's on them, not on you and I. We greet them. Some folks just need that acknowledgement that they are there and somebody's greeting them. There's power in relationships, and we acknowledge that power when we greet one another in a kind way. So we think about the difficulties we have today. There is a paradigm that makes things difficult and conflicting, not only in our minds, but in our life, that you and I have been indoctrinated into and have been socialized into, a paradigm that says dominion over all things. When we commodify the forests and the waters and things to make material gain, dominion over all things conflict with Mother Nature and life that sustains us. We see that in the mining, we see that in all of the things that happen with the energy industries and things of this nature, problems that are astronomical, out of balance, out of harmony with Mother Nature for material gain. We see that paradigm that you and I have been socialized also talks about a hierarchy of life, things at the top, things at the bottom. We socialize and remember about the great chain of being. We have a hierarchy of life. In America, we know that the white man is at the top and the black man is at the bottom. A hierarchy of life. We know that the rock nation has no spirit. In Ojibwe ways, the rocks are alive, the mountains are alive. So this hierarchy of life creates problems and conflicts. We know that in America that you and I have been gendered, male, female. That brings its own kind of conflict. So this hierarchy of life, and we live in a misogynist armed society, a violent society, in this hierarchy of life. And then we think about, in our language, we do not say chimanitu. We say chimanitu, ge chimanitu, kije manitu, the great mystery, the kind, loving mystery. We don't know male or female. I asked that one time of some scholars at St. Scholastica, great Christian scholars, Jewish scholars, Islamic scholars. Where is it that if the women are divine, then why is it then that there is so much oppression to women on our Mother Earth? Is it not because we've gendered the mystery? And these things are deep and profound, but we say not to believe them, but to search and ask and with each other about these things, that being critical thinkers about the way that we've been socialized in America, and how to, is it true? Is it really good for each and every one of us? So we have to give it some thought. You and I are believers in faith. We're faithful. We live accordingly. There's power in belief. The Spirit dominates all things. You and I are told about DNA, that the color of our hair, the tone of our skin, the color of our eyes, DNA. They never tell you about the Spirit. And it's the Spirit that dominates all those things. So when you and I live in a spiritual way, we're happier, our communities are happier, and the nation is happier. So remember that we are being looked at in a good way as we walk about today. We think about indigenous peoples and their wisdom, how to relate and live in balance and harmony. And we try to carry that in our actions each and every day. Because when we come and respect each other with love and reverence and honor, we're a true community. We have that respect, and then we just have to be held accountable to our actions in a good way. So I want to end by just saying again my gratitude for this moment that we have together. We've been given another day to do an opportunity to live a life to honor our teachers, and then to set the example for our children as we walk forth in this day. Thank you for hearing my words here this morning.